Welcome to the Daughter Arise channel. My name is Yvonne and this channel is all about bringing you content to do with childhood sexual abuse. On this channel I share things to do with my experience of going through this childhood trauma. I also share news stories and add my thoughts and commentary to them, and from time to time, when I'm fortunate enough, I do interview other survivors and their supporters in hopes of raising awareness of this childhood trauma. So if this is the type of content you're looking for, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss any uploads, and if you do like the content, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. So in today's video I'm going to be sharing a news story about a Georgia couple sentenced to 100 years in prison for sexual abuse of adopted kids. So I'm going to say up front here, guys, that I am going to give you a trigger warning, because the nature of the content that I'm about to share, the nature of the stuff to do with this story is actually quite disturbing, and if you are easily triggered by this type of stuff, I would recommend not watching this video, or come back at a time when you feel that you're able to listen to it. So I have found this story on Yahoo News, and it is from the end of December actually, when they were sentenced, I think. So it says, a judge in Georgia has sentenced a male couple to 100 years each in prison without parole for sexually abusing children they had adopted. William and Zachary Zullock of Walton County, about 30 miles east of Atlanta, were arrested in 2022 after the Walton County Sheriff's Office received a tip that another man was receiving pictures from the couple that depicted childhood sexual abuse. The Zullocks had adopted two young boys a few years earlier. When interviewed by investigators, they both admitted to sexually abusing the boys over a period of time. In August of this year, William Zullock pleaded guilty to 6 counts of aggravated sodomy, 3 counts of aggravated child molestation, 2 counts of incest, and 2 counts of sexual exploitation of children. In October, Zachary Zullock pleaded guilty to 2 counts of aggravated sodomy, 3 counts of aggravated child molestation, 2 counts of sodomy, 3 counts of sexual exploitation of children, and 2 counts of pandering for a person under 18. I'm not sure exactly what that means. He pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of incest, but Judge Jeffrey L. Foster found him guilty of those charges after a bench trial. Foster sentenced both men on December the 19th. After hearing arguments from both the state and the defense, the court essentially followed the state's sentencing recommendation for both defendants: 100 years in prison, followed by life on probation. Because of the nature of the offences, the defendants will not be eligible for parole for the entire 100 years. It cannot be stressed enough how important it is for our society to have individuals willing to adopt children in need, Judge Circuit DA Randy McGinley said in the release. But anyone who does so and then abuses those children deserves extremely harsh consequences and decades in prison. The sentence imposed not only appropriately punishes these defendants for their repeated selfish actions, but also sends the message to the public that such actions will never be taken lightly. According to Jacob Wittering at Zero Abuse Project, he said most people who sexually abuse children, including men whose victims are boys, are heterosexual. Abuse is about power and control and is not anchored in sexual orientation, he said. I am going to leave a link to the story for you guys to check out in more detail, but I just want to share my thoughts on this. I just find it absolutely just so shocking that this has happened to these children. As somebody who has been in the care system, I was never adopted. I was a looked after child in my younger years from the age of 13 to 17 and a half. When you are a child in the system, you are extremely vulnerable. You have already been through so much, the fact that you've been taken away from your family, or your family unit has broken down, and to be in the care of the state is an extremely emotional experience. I'm sure those of you who may have been in foster care yourselves, or maybe you're adopted, understand what it is that I'm saying. But you are extremely vulnerable as a child, and for these two disgusting individuals to use the state system of adoption to adopt these boys who are vulnerable, who had already been through so much, and then go on to sexually abuse them is absolutely unacceptable. It's absolutely despicable. I am thinking about how they were assessed to be able to be adopters. I wonder what kind of assessment was done, what kind of information was kind of looked at to do with these two. Did they speak to people who knew this couple? Did they go back far in their history? I am somebody who sits on adoption and fostering panels over here in the UK, and as part of the process, as part of the panel, we as members look at the background of the couple. We look at all the different things to do with their history. And it's not just the panel who looks at this, it then goes to an agency decision maker. So I want to know really how they were assessed and what things were looked at in regards to this couple, because it is common knowledge that people who sexually abuse children don't just start. They usually have a history of doing it. And whether that history is revealed or not, there are things in their history that may indicate that they have done it before. So I just wonder how they were able to get away with this. And this is why I'm so cautious about this type of work, because I understand that local authorities or state counties or wherever it is in America or UK do want children to be off their hands. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. There are lots of children out here who are in need of adoptive parents, and even though that might be the case where the county or the local authority might want to find these children a good home and may be more susceptible to putting them in placements, because obviously the child might be harder to place, there still should be lots of checks done. And to me, it's just so sad that these children have had to go through this. I mean, I've just read the charges, sodomy, assault, abuse. Those children have been totally betrayed. And when they do grow up to have so many different issues and so many different challenges, they will be judged as adults who are difficult, who are messed up. They might be judged if they end up having drug abuse problems or other problems that society deems unacceptable. But where did the root of it happen? Where did it happen? In their childhood. Don't know why they ended up in care, don't know why they ended up having to be adopted, but then to be adopted and then to be raped and sodomized and treated in such an inhumane way, it is heartbreaking. For me to hear this is just so heartbreaking. I can't imagine what these young children are going through. Obviously now they're back in the system because their adoption placement obviously has come to an end. And the cycle will go round and round for them until they're 18 years old. And if in the meantime they're showing unacceptable or challenging behaviour to prospective carers who might want to look after them, they will remain in the system. It's so sad, and I pray for them, because they don't deserve the start that they've had in life. No child deserves that start in life. The only positive thing to come out of this story is the fact that these two paedophiles, these two disgusting individuals, have been given 100 years. And that's one of the things that I really do like about America, is that when they sentence you and they give you a sentence, they mean it. So it's not 100 years and then you're on probation. It's 100 years and you have to do the whole 100 years. That's what they said here. And then be on licence for life. So they're never going to come out. They have to serve that 100 years. They're already in their 40s or whatever their age is. They're going to come out of there in a coffin. And it's no less than what they deserve. They are absolutely despicable individuals. That they thought that they could do this to children. And, I think that the local authority or the state, county needs to have stronger things in place to ensure this doesn't happen. Because that's the thing, you see, once children go off to be adopted after a certain amount of time, they're out of the kind of gaze of the local authority, because they're not a looked after child like in foster care, where they will be checked up on every few weeks. With adoption, once they're adopted, they're checked upon not as regularly. Obviously the adopters then can get help if they want to, but obviously the whole kind of thing is that after maybe 12 months, 24 months, they're integrated into their family and they're living with the family. And if they need help with certain things, like maybe extra support or, you know, access to resources, they're given that, but they're not checked upon regularly after a certain amount of time in adoption. And I think that it should be the case that they are, because when I read stories like this, it just makes me so angry and so sad that these children have had to go through this. I am really, really heartbroken for these children. They're absolutely disgraceful and disgusting, and it just goes to show you, you know, that in society, people who have an inclination to want to abuse children, they will find a way. I've already talked about on other videos on this channel about how they wiggle their way into churches, they wiggle their way into anywhere, into families where there is a weakness, you know, like a single parent household, or, you know, the child is struggling with something. They always find a way into that child's life. They spot vulnerable children and they make their way in. Only this week, or should I say last week in the UK, again, after I covered this story about the Rotherham girls a few years ago, we're now finding out obviously that the grooming gangs are still raping young white girls. And there's a lot of uproar over here, because it wasn't just Rotherham at the time, they were doing it in other places up north. But a lot of the girls that they were tending to pick up were girls in the care system. Children in the care system remain the most vulnerable group of children to be exploited for child sexual abuse, child sexual exploitation, for trafficking, child sex trafficking. Children in care are vulnerable and they need to be protected. I hope that many lessons can be learned from this for authorities that look after children. I really just wish those boys well. I will keep them in my prayers. I will leave a link to the full story below for you to check out for yourselves in the description box. But until the next video, take care.